just the presentation?
Oh, yes, you can. So a warm welcome to everybody out there in the world. Today is a very, very special moment because today's Serbia presentation is done from a fantastic and very important person for the virtual happy hour, because Zoran, he was the very first external guest to the virtual happy hour. So without him, potentially, we wouldn't be all together, because we invited him, he joined the IBS internal virtual happy hour, and that gave us hope and motivation to expand it all over the world. And today he is presenting his country, Serbia, and I can guarantee you, you will be amazed. So, Zoran, the stage is yours. Please share your screen again.
Thank you very much. And hello to everyone. Hello from Serbia.
Now we are not seeing your slides anymore. Now we are seeing again all.
Let me see. It has. I got a. Something's wrong with. Okay, I'm back.
Now we see it. Yeah.
But I don't see. Yeah.
Serbia. Now we see the first one.
But I don't see it on my screen. Sorry. Sorry, give me a minute.
No problem.
It was fine. It was fine when we tested. Of course, as with every application, when you test it, it works perfectly. When you move it to production, then the issues start. Of course, this is how the industry rolls.
Yeah, UAT went perfect. Production was chaotic.
Exactly, and we tested it just a minute ago.
And MG, I heard no alcohol. You run out of liquor now in South Africa.
So our government is known for being inept. However, they on last Sunday, they banned alcohol, and normally they only gazette it because they're inept a couple of days later, so you have a couple of days to actually fill up. But this time they actually gazetted it that morning before they told us about the ban. Sneaky little bastards. So I did speak to Christian this morning. I think he had a conversation with you.
And you cannot order online?
No alcohol online. Luckily, I bought enough boxes before we started to last until the ban ends. Unfortunately, I just didn't buy the ones that we were planning to do, but we'll make a plan about that soon.
So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So again, welcome everyone. My name is Zoran Radosavljevic, and I will present you today beautiful country of Serbia. So with the official name of the Republic of Serbia, Republika Serbia, and you see here, and together with the English inscription, you see two different ways of how to write Serbia, and I will explain that in details on the next slides. So I will start this maybe not the way you used to. I will start it with explaining what Serbia is not. So Serbia is not Siberia, and Serbia is not Syria. So I get a lot of questions. Is it cold in Serbia? Or is S7 our national carrier? Or is it linked to Syria? We are also not, and we were never part of Russia. And we speak Serbian, we don't speak Russian. So there are two different languages that are not very intelligible. And you can see here on the map, Serbia here is in the southeast Europe. Russia is here all the way to the, let's say, east, and Syria is, of course, in the Middle East. So when we get the basic things established, so we can move on to tell you what Serbia is. So you can see here on the left, when you write "is Serbia" in Google, you get, of course, the question, is Serbia in Russia? Then, is Serbia in the EU? Is Serbia a country? Is Serbia safe? Is it part of Schengen? Are we developed or a third world country? Are we a democratic country? Or are we part of NATO? So we covered the Serbia in Russia thing. The second thing is basically we are a country in Southeast Europe, a landlocked country. We border Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, and Croatia. The total population is around 7 million. The capital is Belgrade. Around 83% are Serbs, with the significant minorities of Hungarians and Albanians and other. And the language spoken is Serbian, and religion is 85% Orthodox, with Muslims and Catholics. We are a parliamentary democracy republic. We are an EU member candidate from 2012, currently in negotiations, joining in rolling periods. When I was in high school, it used to be 2003, then 2007, 10, 15. Now it's, I think, 25 or 28. So every couple of years, it gets extended by a couple of years. So the main export of Serbia is the iron and steel. So it's rubber and food. We like to joke that the same things that we exported back in like 13th and 14th century, we continue to export it till today. And our main customers, main export countries is the region and the EU. And also the main suppliers is EU plus Russia, of course, for the petroleum and gas and oil. So this is about the general stuff. Of course, you can jump in anytime with your questions.
So do you feel a little bit like strung along like Turkey feels about becoming a EU member state? I didn't know that you've been on the waiting list for so long, to be honest.
Well, it's less time than Turkey. Turkey is like 25 years or so, or even I don't know, Macedonia or someone else. So there have been nations that are waiting for longer, and it's it's politics, and it's a mixture of a lot of things. So we are Europe, definitely. We are part of Europe. We are geographically in Europe and culturally in Europe. And all the talks about, binding us to Russia or China, in my opinion, makes no sense. That's why I picked this table of the main partners. Our main partners in trade is the EU and the region. And the region is basically all EU or NATO. So we belong in EU. And I will also say that becoming part of NATO is a sensitive question. But being in the waiting lobby of the EU basically has its advantages. So we are negotiating. So we are, let's say, aligning our legal framework towards EU, but at the same time we're keeping some benefits we have, such as free trade with Russia. So the thing is that at some point we will join EU, but the question is, how will EU look like when we join?
No, that's a good question. That's a question for its own. That warrants its own session.
Yes.
Yeah.
But just not to belabor this point, but relative to Croatia and Slovenia, who basically fall apart or started to exist the same time around as Serbia, they had like a fast track. They bought the ancillary fast track for EU members.
They bought the fast track the thing is that that process has been expedited in the 90s and finished in the 2000s. And we all know what happened here in the 90s. We had the breakup of country, and we had a civil war here. And we had certain countries being more favored by the West, and some countries being favored by the West less, which is also an effect of the wrong politics and wrong policy that my country applied. So this is basically the result of them having the transition and alignment with the EU much faster. But at the same time, we see, for example, Romania and Bulgaria becoming EU members actually before Croatia, right? And this is again politics. This is EU wanting to put their borders towards Russia. And we still claim that, you know, Romania and Bulgaria compared to Serbia, what I'm saying is it's comparable.
Yeah.
So it's again it's politics.
And I think maybe it's and this gets very philosophical now, but maybe it's also a function of perception in the West about what happened when Yugoslavia broke up and when the civil war started. And reality never is as black and white as it is perceived. But for example, in when I grew up, when I went to school, the general viewpoint was it was the Serbs who started the war, and maybe that's also somewhat the reflected then on that it's taking you longer to become part of the EU.
Yes, exactly.
I personally cannot imagine that such a multicultural, multinational, racial, fragile construct like Yugoslavia, in the end, it's just the guilt or fault of one people, race, person, whatever. There's got to be many more dimensions. But the way it was perceived in the West, or the way I think even today the story is told, is like it was the Serbs.
Exactly, and I have a slide actually on that, just touching on that, and we are definitely not happy about the West painting a black and white picture and exclusively blaming Serbia for everything that happened in the 90s. Of course, we do have our portion of guilt, and a lot of terrible things have been done in the name of Serbia and Serbians by some people in Serbia and in region, but it's definitely not that black and white that West has painted. And based on that, as you said, a lot of people in the West have formed their opinion about Serbia. So, next slide. Serbia's history. So you can imagine how difficult for me was to pack. Can you see the next slide?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I can hear some birds.
Birds.
That's Marco, I think.
That's German birds.
That's here in Berlin.
Is that German birds? That's why I don't understand what they're saying.
No, it's German crows.
So you can see them now.
Yeah.
Photos.
Yeah.
So it was
Yes.
extremely difficult to put like 6,000 years of maybe even more 8,000 years of history in one slide, but I will and keep it short, but I will try to do that. So the history goes back 8,000 years prior with the Vinča culture. It was a Neolithic Danube culture. Then by the 2nd century BC, the Romans ruled over the region, what is today Serbia. Then the beginning of Serbian state started when the Slavic people came to the Balkans. That was in the 7th century. And they fell under the Byzantine rule. Byzantine was basically Greece. It was Eastern Roman Empire that evolved into the Byzantine Empire with a seat in Constantinople, today Istanbul. So the country fell under the Byzantine rule and gained its independence in the 12th century. And by the 1300s, a Serbian empire was established, and it was the most powerful state in the Balkans. But shortly after, the Serbian Empire fell under the rule of the Ottoman Turks. And the Ottoman Turks ruled what is Serbia today until the 1800s, when we had two uprisings in Serbia, first and the second. And before that, Serbia was basically a border between Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, and the territory has often changed hands, especially in the 18th, 17th, and 18th century. So, and how violent the history was, I can tell you. Can you see the photo in the middle with the skulls?
Yeah.
So it's the Skull Tower. So in the first Serbian uprising, 1804, against the Turks, which was not successful, and in 1809, the Turks have beaten Serbian army in a battle, and to show and to scare the local people, they took the skulls of Serbian warriors and they built a several meters high tower, and they built the skulls into the tower to scare the people. And the tower is still standing today in the southern city of Niš.
We currently do that in our office.
The Skull Tower, yeah, good.
And
So,
who are the victims? Who are the donors of the skulls?
The people that resigned.
No. Okay. But
So there's many.
yeah, but isn't that another thing that the Serbs, like probably many other nations on the Balkans, feel a little bit not respected for what they did to protect us, quote and unquote, from the Ottoman Empire?
Yes, exactly. So this was Serbia and parts of Bosnia and Croatia, and what is today Vojvodina, was so-called Vojna Krajina, so something like a military state. It was the buffer zone between the Ottoman Empire and the Austria-Hungary for centuries. And Serbs and Bosnians and Croats and Montenegrins and all the ex-Yugoslav people were warriors that were fighting for the Austria-Hungary and basically protecting Europe from further Ottoman inflow in Europe. And not just to mention that during one war in the late 17th century, Ottomans were very close to conquer Vienna.
Which
so
is how the croissant made it to France, apparently.
With the half moon.
Yeah.
So basically, then we gained independence in the 1800s. Then we had the First World War and the Second World War, and Serbia was divided and conquered by Nazi Germany, and divided between. So ex-Yugoslavia was basically dismembered and divided between Italy, Albania, Hungary, Bulgaria, Germany, and there was a puppet state of independent state of Croatia. And interesting that we had two resistance movements. One was communist and the other one was royalists, supporting of the king. And eventually the communists, the partisans, you can see two photos of the Yugoslav partisans here. See the one that's being hanged, but he shouted, "Long live the Communist Party and the revolution." Eventually they took over after the war, and Serbia became part of socialist Yugoslavia that was ruled by many decades by the person that you can see in the bottom right, Josip Broz Tito, which many believe that he was not a Serbian, but the real Tito was replaced in 1937 in Moscow by a Russian or a Polish guy. And interestingly,
is that the guy with a queen?
Yes, Josip Broz Tito. And even today, a lot of people in maybe India and the Southeast Asia and Africa, when you say Serbia, Yugoslavia, they immediately say Tito, because at the time you had the NATO countries and you had the Warsaw Pact, so the communist East and the capitalist West. Yugoslavia was basically a buffer country, and it was part of a non-aligned movement. Non-aligned meaning the countries that were not part of NATO or the Eastern Bloc, and the countries like India, like Egypt, Yugoslavia. So Tito and Yugoslavia was well known at the time, and still is with some older people in those countries. Then in the 1990s, the Yugoslavia broke apart, and wars resulted and lasted into the early 2000s. The last war being 1999 in NATO bombing. And the Republic of Serbia, as it is today, was officially formed in 2006 after the state union of Serbia and Montenegro was dissolved, and both countries became independent states. So this is 8,000 years of history in a nutshell.
Zoran, this slide is fascinating. I love everything that's been said and shown about this. Just wants me to actually go and study more history. It's really cool.
Thank you.
After you've done all the sculling there in your office. MG.
Thanks, Marco.
So now, every time you talk about Serbia, you need to mention the most famous Serbians. So who doesn't recognize these two guys? Anyone?
One is actually very famous, and yes.
And the other one is Novak Djokovic.
And the other one is a tennis player.
He's a tennis player.
One is a tennis player and one is a car.
Yes, exactly. So the guy on your left is Novak Djokovic. He's the world's tennis player #1. He's very famous in Serbia and in the world. Basically, in the last 7-8 years, wherever I go, wherever I say I'm from Serbia, they say, "Oh, Novak Djokovic, Novak Djokovic." So 99%.
Is it Tesla?
The other guy, yes, that's Tesla. So the Djokovic, his 99% of Serbians adore him. He's a showman. He's a good tennis player. He's a humanitarian. He made a blunder with this Adria Tour, and that got him a lot of negative publicity.
And he also selected once a very strange German tennis coach.
Boris Becker?
Yeah, how can he select this guy?
Yeah, Boris Becker is a guy of scandals, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's a character.
And a ginger.
So Serbia is today known for Novak Djokovic. But the guy on your right is Nikola Tesla. So he's actually a Serbian that was born in Austria-Hungary and what is now today Croatia. It emigrated in the United States and got to U.S. citizenship. So he's often referred as a Serbian-American inventor. So he's our airport is named Nikola Tesla Airport. The currency of 100 dinars has his picture. Actually, this picture. And he's the guy that invented the alternate current on which the modern electrical supply is based. He's also famous for inventing the wireless transmission. In 1901, he tested a boat that was controlled by the remote control. He also in the 20s described something like a mobile phone, saying that people will be able to communicate with each other on long distances, to see their faces and talk to them with a device that can stay in the vest pocket. So you can find it online. So it's a quote from the 20s. And he was a visionary. And one of his invention that didn't went through, and his idea was basically to provide and supply the world with free energy. So using the Earth's crust and the magnetic fields there to basically transfer energies to long distances and providing all the people of the world with free energy. And he did some experiments, but he, went out of funding, and he died in poverty in a hotel room in New York. And immediately after he died, all his works and papers were seized by the Secret Service of the United States. And there are many conspiracy theories about Tesla secret weapons, Tesla this and Tesla that, and many of his inventions there's a round of conspiracy theory and secrecy around that.
So I recently watched a documentary about him because it was fascinating. And Rockefeller actually gave him money to build the first tower to test the induction of electricity in the air in New York. I don't know if you know about that, Zoran.
Well, not about Rockefeller.
They actually built the tower. And then when it started becoming against the oil companies and other energy providers, Rockefeller revoked the money, and they blasted the tower into smithereens.
Yep, and that's true. He wanted to provide free energy to the world, and he was a strange person. He never married. He always wear gloves. He didn't shake hands with people. There's even a story that he cut off his testicles for the testosterone to go to his brain and not to his down parts. So, and he was extremely strange.
Sounds like
Sounds like he was saying that. He was saying that he was, if I'm not wrong, describing himself as an asexual person, and he said that basically that if an inventor, if a man of creation, as he defined himself, would have a relationship with a woman who he loved, he wouldn't be able to invent and put all the passion into creating something, and that he thought that there was no real inventor that was actually married. So he had his own vision about relationship and inventing. So he was quite a peculiar guy.
I always knew that I'm not going to be an inventor then.
Yeah, I think so.
Me neither.
But come on, we love you anyway.
So these were famous Serbians. Now I have a slide on the other side of the story, the most infamous Serbians. So you see here on the photo the three guys that were played major roles in the 1990s war in this area and during the breakup of Yugoslavia. On the far left, you see the former president of Serbia and Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević. On the right, you see the leader of Bosnian Serbs, Radovan Karadzic. And the guy behind is the general of the Bosnian army, Ratko Mladić. So all three of them ended up in the Hague War Crime Tribunal. Milošević died there. The two remainders are, I think, waiting for their verdicts. So these guys basically led Serbia and what is the part of Bosnia that was controlled by Serbs during the 90s. And while a lot of crimes were committed against the other people and other nations, such as Croats and Bosniaks, and which we and myself are very, let's say, very feeling bad about it, and Serbia still hasn't been able to cope with the role that their leadership did in the 1990s and to accept the crimes that were committed falsely in the name of Serbia and Serbians. So, and I firmly believe that only once everyone in the region accepts the crimes of their own people, we will be able to have let's say, a reconciliation among each other. And everyone needs to clean up their own yard before looking into other countries' yards. But the thing is, what I said at the beginning and what you, Marcus, said, that it wasn't all black and white. And we are very mad that the picture was painted about the Serbians being the only one to blame for the things that happened in the 90s. Of course, they're Montenegrins. I'm kidding. There needs to be, let's say, it takes two to tango. But the thing is that the politics of Serbian leaders was not to be supported by the West. And again, accepting the crimes of your own people is the first step into moving forward. The same thing has been done by Germany, as I read by Willy Brandt, what he did in, I think, Israel or something like that. So to accept and then to start the reconciliation process.
Yeah, difficult, but it's in the end, it's the winners that write or define history.
So the guy on the right, if you paint his face orange, looks a little bit like somebody in the U.S.
Well, if you bring up this picture, it looks like mobsters from the 60s.
Yeah, actually, the guy is a doctor. He's a psychiatric doctor, and he was for 8 or 9 years a fugitive, and he hid actually in Belgrade in the false identity. He lost weight, he had grown beard, and he regularly was on the TV as a healer under false name. And he attended conferences and he healed people while in a false name and being a fugitive from the war crime tribunal. So very interesting. And he lived in a neighborhood in Belgrade. Now, the fun part. So the fun facts. So the most last names in Serbia end in IC. So I've given a couple of examples. So
I like the last one.
I took Marinka's last name, and just to show that here in the Balkans we are all interconnected. We share culture. We share a lot of things in common, even the last names. So it means he's the son of. So Vukmir, Radosav, or Vuk, then Vucic, Vukmirovic, and Radosavljevic. And most of the last names end in IC. Then the second thing is that we use both Cyrillic and Latin alphabets. So, and they're basically the same grammar. You write it the same, just the...
I have a question. If you are a woman, how can you be the son of somebody?
When you marry, you take the last name of your husband. So
okay, but even if you're not marrying, so which name are you carrying? You are not the son of somebody. You are the daughter of somebody.
Well, the daughter, but your father was the son of someone, and you have your father's last name.
I see. By the way, Cyrillic has also an itch. So it's Cyrillic.
Cyrillic is the son of Cyril.
Yeah, exactly. Cyrillic.
So Cyrillic is taken from Greek alphabet, and it's actually named after the missionaries from Greece called Cyril and Methodius. So we use both Latin and Cyrillic. That's why we can read signs when we go to Russia or Ukraine and Eastern Europe, and we can read the signs when we go west. And we learn both in schools. So when Croatians, for example, come here, especially the younger ones, so we speak basically the same language, but they cannot read the signs because they don't learn Cyrillic alphabet in school anymore.
So do you guys learn Latin in schools?
Well, only in certain high schools, such as In German is Gymnasium, the general high school, which I went. You have let's say called a classical education. You learn a piece from everything, and I had Latin first 2 years in school, high school. The next fun fact is that Serbia is the largest raspberry exporter in the world. So this is a very valued fruit here. And actually, the foreigners say it is very cheap. So the kilo of raspberry can cost, let's say, €2 or even less on the market, while I've seen it being very expensive in the West.
Mladenga, Montenegro was the largest exporter of a certain wine. What was it? I cannot remember anymore.
Plantages, red wine. So you have several types of it, but what I said, we are not the largest exporter, but we are the country that has the largest production per inhabitant in the world.
The next fun fact is that Temple of St. Sava in Belgrade is the largest Orthodox church in use in the world. So it is huge, and it's been built already 90 years. And they say that each generation basically gives a part of its wealth into building this monumental temple. The outside is finished, but the inside you see on the right about mosaics and frescoes is still being completed. And this is actually the right spot to tell you something about the difference in Catholic and Orthodox. And actually, this fact is one of the most important facts of all the conflicts and all the misunderstandings in this region. So as you learned in school, so there was one Church of Christ, but in 11th century there was a great schism and the church split. And you see on the map the blue part was under the influence from Constantinople, today Istanbul, by the Byzantine Empire, and you see the orange part on the left was under influence from Rome. And you can see the border is basically going in this region. So what is now today Serbia and part of Bosnia fell under the influence of Byzantine Empire and the East. And what is now Croatia and you see part of Montenegro fell under the influence of Rome. And over the centuries, the differences grew apart. And today you basically have the Catholic West and the Orthodox East. And the difference between two can be said they're significant. The Catholics, they recognize the ultimate authority of the Pope, while the Orthodox, the countries have their own patriarchs and their own churches, like the Patriarch of Serbia, Patriarch of Greece, of Russia, of Jerusalem. And they're allowed, so the priests in Orthodox Church, they're allowed to marry, while the Catholics are not. And there are also a lot of other differences. And actually, we, when Catholics take the hand to do the how do you say that in English? Not sure. We do the opposite. So the Catholics they do it with an open palm, and the Orthodox do it with the 3 fingers like this, and in the other direction. So this is also difference between Catholic and Orthodox. And on the far right, you see one of the most beautiful frescoes in the Orthodox world, which is the White Angel in the monastery Mileševa in Serbia.
Is it common or not common that say Orthodox and Catholic ex-Yugoslav country people marry? Or is it also necessary that the one and the other has to convert in order to be accepted in the other society? Or can a Catholic? Of course, you would never marry a Croatian. I know that, but would it be possible with Montenegro, for example?
Well, the first thing is Montenegro is also majority Orthodox.
But maybe there's a Catholic Montenegro. No?
No, no.
The thing is that the church is separated from the state. So Orthodox religion is not an official religion. So it's been practiced by the majority of Serbs, but the church is separate from the state, meaning that you do not need a permission from church to marry someone from other religion. You do need that person to convert to Orthodox Christianity if you want to be married in a church. So church ceremony, you both need to be Orthodox to be married in a church. But for the civil marriage, you don't need. Yeah. So for the priest to marry you with someone from other nation, that person needs to convert to Orthodox Christianity.
Okay.
That's interesting, Zoran, because then the Greek Orthodox interpretation is a little more relaxed or liberal. Because when I married my wife, the only question that the Greek priest asked whether I was baptized. So his only worry was, am I part of the club?
So baptized
the wider club of Christianity. He didn't ask me to convert to the Orthodox Church. He just said, "You're baptized? Are you baptized, son?" I said, "Yes." Okay, that's all that matters. Okay. Fair enough.
Well, then it's a difference here. We're more hardcore.
Yeah, I think the Greeks are very well.
It also depends on the priest, actually, because normally if they follow the procedure strictly, in my case, I would not be named Mladenka in Orthodox Church. I was baptized with the name that I have. I don't have a second name. And normally I should have been baptized with from the list of the names that existed. And in Orthodox Church, Mladenka was not the one. Mladenka is more Croatian, hence Catholic. And they still did it. They just appended the list of the names later because my mother was really insisting on the name that I have. So kind of like any other organization, I would say they can bend the rules if they want.
Well, in my case, they clearly wanted to bend the rules. Whereas the Catholic Church, they were very strict and dogmatic. They said, no way, you can't. Because
well, it depends, I think. I think it depends also on the priest, like Madeleine said, because sometimes also Catholic priests, they say one thing according to the rules. And sometimes it depends how they act depending on the person that you are talking to, because sometimes they oblige you to show evidence or documents that you are baptized or that you did certain, situations according to the Catholic Church. But if you know the priest and if they know that you have been behaving in a certain way, they don't even ask you for any proof. It's strange. It depends on on the priest, I think.
Maybe that's the reason why the Catholic priest said no way, and the Greek Orthodox priest said,
and church is
bad for every new sheep in my stable.
And church is a profit organization, and they don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
So basically, the thing is that under the price list, so a lot of things are possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So the next slide is just to show that don't mess with Serbia and Serbians, because when we are really pissed, we can start a world war.
When I see this Zora now, I think that Trump was thinking of you, not of us, when he stated that we could start the next world war. He probably just didn't differentiate between the two.
Yes. Yeah. So the World War I was actually started by a Serbian, and it all had a context of Bosnia being annexed by the Austro-Hungary, which made mad a lot of Serbians, including some of the secret organizations, and they plotted and they assassinated in Sarajevo the Archduke Franz Ferdinand from Austro-Hungary. Then the Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Then Russia declared war on Austria-Hungary. Germany declared war on Russia. Then France and England, and then you had the World War. So the bottom line, don't mess with Serbians. And actually, there was a quote, in Germany, this guy Bismarck, right? He's famous. He's the chancellor that united Germany. And he said on his dying bed that someday there's going to be a world war that's going to be started by some foolish thing in the Balkans. And he said that like decades before the World War. So he was basically aware of how the region is complex and how the relations are very complex, and how everyone needs to be very careful what they did in the region, because it can cause a huge mess.
So Zoran, this is a very interesting picture. If I look at this, the first thing that comes to mind is that did John F. Kennedy learn nothing from the early 1900s? Because this sort of looks very similar to what's happened to other presidents.
The open car. Yeah, the open car. Even the king of Yugoslavia 20 years later was shot in Marseille, and he was riding in an open car.
Now I understand why the Pope has that glass box around him.
So next fun fact is the 18 Roman emperors were born in the present-day Serbia, which is 1/5 of all Roman emperors. Even the Constantine the Great, the guy that made the Christianity the official religion, he was born in Serbia. Then another fun fact is the one Serbian word used throughout the world is vampire. It originated in Serbia, and there was a vampire activity actually in the 1700s, and it called for an investigation from the Austrians, and they sent a guy there, and he made an official report saying that there are proofs of vampire activity in the region, and it was published by the Wiener Zeitung at the time, and it made throughout the Europe, and then you had the Dracula and Bram Stoker and everything. So it originated in Serbia.
Isn't the word for vampire singoi or something similar to that?
Well, vampire.
Okay.
So, and the only stealth aircraft ever shot down in combat was in Yugoslavia by the Yugoslav army, and you can see part of it in the aviation museum. And the joke at the time is, sorry, we didn't know it was invisible.
Yeah, I just learned today there was a problem with the painting, as I was told from a US guy. And interestingly, many US guys were signing up here for the session. Unfortunately, one dropped already off. Potentially, he knew you are going to present this issue. But Stephen, you're still in the call. So what made you so keen to join Serbia?
Well, we also have John on the call.
Stephen?
He's more technically advanced these days.
Stephen, are you still there?
I think he's on mute. Let's hear from John.
Yeah. Well, actually, Stephen would be better because I'm sure he posed the question about the paint. But no, I actually was working during the Bosnian War with a defense contractor here, where an F-16 was shot down over there, and they had to get out one of our people. I was in the Air Force at the time, so no, I'm very aware of the capabilities of shooting down things, and I'm also very aware of the faculties of some early stealth technologies. So no, I do not doubt this. I do doubt that they could shoot down a current B-2 stealth bomber, but that's okay.
And it was shut down using like 60s and 70s technology from the Soviet Union.
No, I totally understand. And like I said, I don't disagree with the facts, because I know that F-16 was shut down in 96 or so. I didn't know about this stealth one, and I'm not going to pretend that it was due to a bad paint job, for God's sake, because if that's the case, they cost
billions of dollars. So then that's the Americans' fault. And by the way, just raising my hand, I live in France. I don't really give a crap about what they do.
There's no problem, John. We have good lawyers. We can defend you all the time.
So
Okay.
the next fun fact is that there's a mountain in Serbia called Rtanj, and its peak is shaped as a pyramid. And there are a lot of legends and a lot of theories around it, including that the peak is an alien spacecraft, and that there's an energy field inside. And actually, in the 2012, who remembers the predicted Mayan doomsday, there were a lot of people, a lot of foreigners that have flocked here, believing the mountain will protect them. And there are a lot of healing herbs from the area, and very famous tea is made from here, called the Rtanj tea. But there's an interesting story told to me by the former CEO of Air Serbia, the guy called Velibor Vukašinović, and he was a test pilot for a civilian aircraft manufacturer. And he said that when he flew over the peak of Rtanj, suddenly all his instruments went crazy, and he needed to land visually. And afterwards, they inspected the aircraft, and they found out that the entire structure of the aircraft got magnetized.
It's aliens. I'm telling you now, it's aliens.
Well, there are a lot of stories about this mountain, but this is the guy told me that his plane got magnetized when he flew over the peak. So he had no reasons to tell a lie. The next one is that the most expensive cheese is made in Serbia. It costs around 1,000 euros for 1 kilogram from donkey milk. And it's actually 60% donkey milk, 40% goat milk. And it's called pule. 1,000 euro for a kilo.
Why is it so expensive?
Because to getting milk from a donkey, you need to have a lot of milk. And I think they don't give a lot of milk, the donkeys.
And have you ever tried it? I mean, is it worth it, or is it just?
No, I have never tried it. I'm still saving for a portion.
Well, make sure you add some black truffles to it, so it's like really worth like 2 or 3 or 4.
And some gold.
And some what's that duck thing? French duck thing.
Foie gras.
Liver. Foie gras, yeah.
That's cheap. That's nothing like black
So
truffles.
this is a list of things to anger Serbians, to bring it up in the conversation. We have Kosovo, the Clintons.
Why
Croatia,
the Clintons? Stop. Why the Clintons?
Because of the 1990s. So he was he was president like 92 to 2000, right? And he was supporting the other side. So he's not remembered very well here.
Okay.
Especially of the 1999 bombing of Yugoslavia. Then being a tentative driver, especially in Belgrade, criticizing the nation, of course, claiming Tesla was a Croat.
By the way, which Formula One driver is coming from Serbia?
Formula One.
Yeah, because if you only have good drivers, I would assume you have many Formula One drivers, isn't it?
That's a good point. We don't bother with getting into these tracks and circles and riding into control conditions. We like chaos on the streets.
Okay.
I would say Vettel is a Serbian Formula One driver, isn't he?
Vettel, no.
Well,
Is
because
he not?
he's tentative and terrible, or?
No,
Vettel, I think Vettel is German. Something.
He's
No,
No, Vettel is from Croatia. So there's a
Oh,
driver in
I'm
Formula
sorry.
One.
I just
And
made
he
one
must-
of
an anger
the
point.
mistakes.
And his real name is Vettelic.
I thought he was like a niece of the Clintons.
So then you need to be very careful when clinking glasses. You need to have eye contact with the people. Avoiding eye contact
Marco.
is considered rude.
Marco, you will know this. Look in my eye.
I don't know where the camera is that I need to look into, but I think it's there.
Then we like the stories about the neo-colonialism and all the things, and we get into very heated debate when someone brings it up. Of course, mixing us with Siberia and Syria, making some linguistic assumptions, and supporting the wrong team.
What is meant with making linguistic assumptions?
Like that Serbian is similar to Russian or Polish or other languages, or it's the same thing.
Okay.
But I think the one thing you didn't touch upon yet, Zoran, is when you talk about linguistic assumptions, is all your copying of German words.
Yeah, that's true. We looked at the list of words that are used in Serbia and that come from Germany, and it's mostly around tools and machines and cars. So yeah, today we figured out that stal, we use stala for cattle.
Stable.
We use stable.
Yeah.
We use
stable in German is stall, so where you put your cattle, and apparently in Serbian it's stala.
Stala. Yeah, we use
in Italian is a stalla anyways, so most probably we originated the language.
Oh
no,
Latin.
let's not get into that conversation. That has
Zoran,
conversation.
And the Italians stole it from the Greeks, right?
Who got it
from
the
Latin,
Albanians?
I think.
Yeah, who got it from the Albanians, according to Genti, and the Albanians got it from the Serbs.
And they got it from the people from Atlantis. We never know.
Yeah. But what about the check-in counter? That's the other one, because that has nothing to do with cars.
Which one?
Check-in counter at the airport. What do you call that?
Check-in counter.
No. Didn't you mention something like Schalter?
Schalter, yeah, not the check-in. It's like every in the hospital or in state administration, the person sitting behind the glass panel accepting some documents. It's Schalter.
It's the reception. It's like the acquisition here.
No, it's counter. So it's like any type of counter is which in German is Schalter in Serbian. I find that really amusing.
And we use rikverc to go back. Rikverc, Gepik.
Zoran, what do you mean by supporting the wrong team?
Oh, that's a big thing here. So we have football hooligans that are pretty nasty.
Is it soccer? Is it soccer?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, football.
Don't worry.
Football.
And Zoran, just to let you know, it's one of the biggest defeats of my home team. I think it was 1979 when Hertha BSC was playing against Red Star Belgrade in the UEFA Cup semi-final, and we didn't make it to the final because one goal was missing. So, but yeah, maybe in the future, Hertha BSC will win against Red Star Belgrade.
Yeah, Neven Subotic used to play for Hertha.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
No. Neven Subotic plays for Union Berlin. He used to play in Borussia Dortmund, and now he plays in Union Berlin.
But we have a lot of Croatians. We had the Kovac brothers and so on. So.
Oh, Pantelic, I think, played for Hertha.
And now we have
Mirko Pantelic.
And we have
the one with the flat long black hair and
Pantelic, exactly. And we have this guy from Bosnia now. What's his name? Ibisevic.
And the Red Star was together with Steaua Bucharest, the only Eastern European teams that have won the Champions League. So we have won that in 1991.
But by the way, you're not talking about this great game 1990, Germany against Yugoslavia, where Lothar Matthäus had a wonderful goal and Germany became world champion. You're not talking about this one.
Oh, the Italy World Cup, that's in the groups, right?
Yes,
Exactly, the
that
first
was
game.
the first match.
I think Alessandro will agree with me, but uh, can we have a separate VHH about football?
That's so boring.
Because firstly, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Secondly,
Secondly, it is very boring.
Okay, we will then move on. So I'm going to tell you now.
First of all, Zoran, I'm curious why you're talking about 1991 because it's probably before you were born. So how do you even know about these games?
So thank you, John, for believing I'm younger than I really am. I was born in 1984, and I was 7 years old, and I do remember beating Bayern Munich in the semifinals with players like Effenberg and who else was
can we go
there?
to the next slide?
Brian Laudrup, and we beat them in Munich 2-1.
Zoran, we don't have time for that. Please go to
Can we have a VHH 7, which is specifically on football?
Okay.
I don't want to hear about defeats. I only want to talk about victories.
I'm gonna tell you why you should never visit Serbia. So you ready?
Wow.
Yes.
So basically, Serbia is nothing special. It's full of ordinary stuff. It's a barren wasteland. So it's full of things you see all the time. So the architecture is horrendous. It's everything is simply stupid. So you should. It's coming. You should bring. Coming? Not yet.
It has to be really big.
I had something to say about that, but I just realized I should not say it.
So better bring your food. There's nothing good to eat here in Serbia.
I did. I follow the rules. I brought my own food.
Good.
Looks like my breakfast at the Hyatt.
So
you could share.
The winters are just boring here in Serbia, and it doesn't matter where you look. It's always looked the same. The nature is simply boring. It's definitely not worth your patience. And you would never want to spend your New Year's with these people. You would rather spend it alone, believe me. We definitely in Serbia do not know how to party. And again, you should never ever consider visiting Serbia, because Serbia totally sucks.
I've got one or two things to add to that. I was lucky enough to visit Air Serbia last year, and things that you did not add to that is your clothing sucks, meaning that I had 6 pairs of suits made for me overnight, which was amazing.
Really?
And it was really good, well priced. I'm talking about 60 euros for a very proper suit in New Belgrade.
60 euros. 60.
Yes.
Can you send me the address? Because Marco and me, before we go to Latvia in June, maybe we go to Serbia before.
I don't think it was 6.
Latvia,
I don't know 6 suits, but there's a couple of suits.
I know. For Latvia, we don't know. We don't need
No,
suit.
Daniel. For Latvia, we don't need any clothes.
I know.
So they have these shops where you can just go in. They fit you, and you choose the material. The next day you go, your suit is made. It was amazing. And then I went for dinner with the Air Serbia people, And they had that similar drink, that shot that you guys spoke about, but I don't know. You get it in peach as well. It's quite strong. Zora?
Rakia.
Yeah. There we go. I had a couple of different types of that. That was awesome. So definitely don't go to Serbia for that. So I just thought I'd add that.
Well, can we go back a few slides and understand where we should avoid going if we don't want to see the things that you showed us?
Sure. So this is the last slide. This is Zlatibor. This is a mountain in southwest Serbia, and it has a village that is basically preserved, a small village with all the traditional tools and the traditional crafts, and it's very nice. This is previous slide is Mountain Tara, and what you see there is the river Drina that is dividing Bosnia and Serbia, the border of Bosnia and Serbia. This is the trumpet festival in Guča. So the trumpet and all the bands, they play the traditional Serbian music, and there are thousands and thousands of people, and there's thousands of liters of rakia and cevapcici, and it's very, let's say, traditional happening. The previous photo is Novi Sad. So you can basically see how the architecture is very similar to the Central European and Western European, because Novi Sad was part of Austria-Hungary. So you see the cathedral and you see the main square. So you have a different feeling when you're in Northern Serbia versus South Serbia.
Of course, if you go back to this picture, of course the question is, how can we have these moments with this stupid thing of physical distance?
I was thinking precisely the same thing, Daniel.
Well, hopefully there will be a vaccine, and everyone can go back to being physically close. That's what I sincerely hope, because
Indeed.
social distance, physical distance is gonna kill everything.
Or maybe we need a kind of a full body condom for everybody. No, but I saw one video where somebody is hugging his grandma, and he had exactly a plastic thing entirely around her, and so he could hug her, because I think that's what mostly is missing while meeting friends, not being able to hug and have a kind of a body connection with the people. So maybe there are some innovations coming out too.
Well, I do believe there will be less people, because with all these anti-vaxxer peoples who will not take the vaccine, it should be less people. We'll be able to get some social distancing.
Daniel, I just read it off that people really don't want to hug me, so it's okay. They're fine with social distancing.
Nobody wants to hug you? We can organize something with a virtual happy hour if you like.
Good luck with getting invitation.
Hugging contest.
Yeah.
So this is Danube on the right. So Danube falls through Serbia, some 600 kilometers. And this is actually close to where I live.
So this is close to Belgrade then.
Yeah. This is, I think, again, Zlatibor. This is the Uvac Lake, and it goes in like this. And the bird you see is the vulture, a kind of vulture that is unique to Serbia.
And where
is that also
is
what
this?
you have on the flag?
No, the flag we have double-headed eagle.
Do you have double-headed eagles there?
Yeah, they came in the 1986 flu from Ukraine.
I thought they came from Chernobyl, but
Yeah, exactly. This is Subotica. This is Subotica, a city in North Serbia. on the border with Hungary. And what you see here on the previous slide is the traditional food. And I can guide you through, so you see can you see my pointer? No? These are cevapcicis.
And Zoran, I still remember our meal we had there, and you know I had to stand up and walk around and so on because I was totally stuffed. Yeah, so I had to jump in order to stimulate digestion and so on. It's really stuffing, but very, very delicious. I love it.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a keto diet.
No, not really.
So it's our cuisine is a mixture of
Meat and meat.
Meat and meat definitely is a Turkish, Arabic influence, Western influence. We have something of our own, but burek, cevapcici, sarma, gibanica. So that's all you need to try when you are here.
Is there a big difference to the kitchen from Montenegro?
That's a tricky question now.
I know Mladenka is not on the call anymore.
Yeah.
Now
So
you can openly, Zoran. You can speak openly.
Well, there is not much difference. Just that we have, for example, some influence from Austria and Hungary, which they don't. But on the other hand, they have influence from the Italian and Mediterranean cuisine.
And who has the better rakia?
We do. Of course.
Rakia is that drink I had that people in Serbia forced me to drink all 4 or 5 different types of it that we had it there.
Terrible, MG. I'm so sorry. I feel sorry for you.
Oh, well, luckily, this restaurant, if you cross the little square, there's a building on the top. It's got a blue light, and the whole blue top, and the top is Djokovic's penthouse. So I can relate to your earlier discussion.
So the rakia is the kind of drink that makes you do like this.
Zoran, I have a question for you. You know my lovely colleague Anuja, based in Hanover. She just joined the call some minutes ago. She was planning to go to Italy, in the country of Alessandro. Of course, lovely country, Italy. So what do you think? Should she consider to go to Serbia instead? What are the benefits going to Serbia versus Italy?
Good question you asked for me, Daniel. Thank you.
That question actually goes the same with mine. Is I've been discussing with my spouse with my 40th birthday next year to do Eastern Europe, and Serbia is one of the countries that we want to do as well, because we heard that the Danube river actually has some good wine regions.
So I think Anuja, the first benefit is that I assume Serbia has a cost benefit for you. So if you go in a restaurant, potentially you can eat the double and pay the half, and the same for drinking the double and pay the half. That's my assumption.
And they have euro as a currency?
No.
No, it's Serbian dinar.
Okay.
And there are exchange booths all over the city. But basically, you can get a dinner in a nice fancy restaurant, dinner for 2, with a good wine and good rakia, and that will cost you, let's say, 35 euros.
And for that one, you get in Italy maybe a piece of pizza and a glass of water.
Yeah.
Well, you for sure.
But just be careful if you take out Serbian dollars from the cash machine, because if you've had a few rakias and you take cash out, then you end up with like cash you'll need for 5 years, because
John, you're 100% correct. I still have about 10 or 20,000 between there of Serbian dinars in my cupboard there.
Which is, what more reasons do you need to go to Serbia then?
No, Serbia is definitely on my go back list.
So I find
So-
that when I was 11, sorry, in 1981, my parents and me, we did a trip through Yugoslavia, which then still existed, from north to south with a camper van.
Zoran,
And it
by the
was
way, if you like,
absolutely
you can stop
fantastic
your
and mind-boggling nature.
everybody in the.
Sorry.
Your presentation was done, isn't it, Zoran?
Yes, I had a short video for you, but I'm not sure if
yeah.
I play a video where you hear.
Please stop this video and then stop sharing, because then we see everybody in the
Whoa.
lively discussion.
Yeah.
We also want to see your children, of course.
Of course.
So I have a question. If I play a video, will you hear the sound?
Maybe.
Yes.
We'll find out.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Alessandro, it's a nice T-shirt you have.
Yeah, is some personality. I'm not really sure who it is because the shirt is not mine. I borrow.
Are you comfortable in your seat?
Me? Yes, definitely. Thanks.
So, do you hear the sound?
Pivo is beer.
No.
You don't hear the sound?
No.
So how do I make you hear the sound? Any advice?
Maybe because currently you use your microphone.
Yes, and it says muted. Well, one that you're showing says muted. It's got a mute button on.
Uh-huh.
Now you have to press on play.
Okay, I'm gonna mute here.
Maybe Zoran, maybe it would be better if you just post the link on the chat so we can listen to ourselves, because it looks really interesting.
Exactly, that's a good idea.
Zoran, I have to tell you this one interesting story. Is I've been speaking to this friend of mine from Etihad, who's a lady who's a really good friend of mine from 2009. And she, when Etihad and Air Serbia had that little bit of a joint venture, she moved over to Air Serbia. And then the last year or what, so she's been very coy or more on what she's doing, because she stopped working at Air Serbia. When I went there in December, I found out she married your CEO.
Zoran, you're muted.
Yeah, you told me about it. It's Duncan. She married Duncan.
Yeah, Amanda.
Amanda.
Yeah,
So did you get the link?
Yeah.
Yes, we got it.
Got it.
Okay. Play it now or? You can click below. There's captions, the subtitles.
Jel nama treba koliko treba, a sve ovo naše je od asfalta do neba. Duša nam je teška, ali je velika. Slavit ćemo život, slaviti do reka. Duša nam je teška, ali je velika. Slavit ćemo život, slaviti do reka. Živili, ostali, još jedno popili. Ajde kume, ustani, pa ti si moje najbolje. Bog nas čuva s neba, na zemlji ti me čuvaš. Kao čovjek ja ti izabrao, kao klinac te zavoleo. I kad se živelo, živjeli, kad je život boleo. A žene ljubili smo mi, ljubav kupili smo svi, a ljubili smo tako da nas nikad ne zaboravili. Ja ne gledam piso, ja go ne...
I like the subtitles.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So it's actually a commercial for a beer, and they gathered different bands from small cities that play different music and different instruments. So and it's a mixture shows basically, you know, a lot of different cultures and different styles of music in Serbia. So with that, I've finished my presentation of Serbia for today.
Zoran, that's a really big thank you. I'm really amazed.
Thank you, Zoran.
And I really have to say I'm always surprised, astonished, and blown away from the creativity and the effort all the people put in their presentation. How do you feel now? You said you were a bit nervous. Now I think you are.
I'm relaxed.
Cool.
And
Great.
and it was great. You know, you were a great crowd, and I really liked this.
And